Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls 3. Today, we are plunging into the Profaned Capital, which I'm both looking forward to, but at the same time, I'm also really not looking forward to it. Because when you first gaze down at it from the overlook in Irithyll Dungeon, all you see is this imposing vertical column. And it's awesome, because it conjures up this image of spiraling down into this city of desolation. But looks can be deceiving, because this place really isn't special. Pains me to say, but the Profaned Capital is nothing. Like, you look down here once you're on the bridge, and it's just a void. There's some really special stuff in it, but I'm mostly just disappointed by this level. But first things first, we want to climb up inside the central tower, crumble to ruins, climb up this ladder, and we hit our main bonfire. I say main one, it's our only one. But who is this? This is familiar. Surrounded by ladders. This is the body of Laddersmith Gilligan from DS2. Kind of explains why there are so many ladders around here. He just came in and set up shop for everybody. Okay. So the Profaned Capital is the only area in the game. This really looks like they meant for you to jump off here and like crash through the floor, but they didn't have time or something. The Profaned Capital really, really deeply disappoints me. It's kind of a garbage level. And it looks especially bad in a series that is so full of great levels. It just feels so tiny and artificial in stark contrast to the rest of the game, which is sprawling and fully realized. This one's just small and boring. And worse than being small, it like I said, it feels artificial. It doesn't feel like anyone ever actually lived in this city. All the inhabitants are supposed to be dead, scorched by the Profaned Flame, but it nails desolation. Also be wary of the holes in the floor around here. It nails desolation, but it just doesn't feel like it was actually a breathing, living city at any point. Because all it is really two spokes that poke out from that tower. So you can go one of two ways, and it's either towards the boss with a little room for exploration, or you can go back the way you came and do this bit that I'm doing now. And you see these heights, and it evokes memories of like the spiraling verticality of Latria or DS1, and it's just, nah. Take a ladder down and trace this linear path on either side. And they build it up only for it to be so insubstantial. Like, it's bite-sized and it's boring. It's got a few really good things going for it, and they're the only things keeping it from being completely abysmal. Like, it's got a new enemies design coming up. It's got some really good lore implications, and one tiny cool way they found to link two levels together. It's also got the return of our old friends. Say hello. The thing it does well, it does exceptionally well. Like, the few things. But it makes the rest of the bland piece of shit level so much worse by comparison. It doesn't feel lived in. It doesn't seem like a capital city that used to be a place where people actually lived. It's just a set. It's a stage. You peer over the edge and not even the hint of a city. Just a big void. A big fucking stupid void. I have the same bone to pick with Irithyll, to an extent. And I would have complained about Irithyll more if it were less substantial, less full of eye candy, to be honest, and if they didn't kind of try to further the illusion of it actually being a city, even though it's just kind of a pathway. That's the big thing that stops me from calling Irithyll my favorite level. Like I said, though, they do a better job of disguising how just linear and poorly defined Irithyll as a city actually is, with just a little bit of effort in set dressing. Just a couple of, like, little JPEG cities and houses and stuff off in the distance. Plus, it nails atmosphere really well, which I don't feel like this level particularly does well. What I wanted from it is Aleum Lois, except scorched, and instead it's just whatever. It feels like they ran out of time or money or something here. Like, it's a really big letdown for me, especially for how cool the lore that I'm going to talk about in this episode is. And yeah, it's not going to be all me complaining about how shitty this level is, and it is shitty. Man, it's just a big disappointment, big letdown. Luckily, it's one of the few in the game like that. This swamp is close to where all of the best parts of the level actually are. First off, we're close to some dope bit of world design. Second, we're right around the corner from one of my favorite monster designs. And three is, well, it's where we're really gonna get started on picking the exciting lore of this place apart. And in fact, it's right over here where I want to be. You want to join the party? Got the right moss clump on this time. I think I had the one that just cures poison before. Aha! Oh well, it's not actually that bad. I stocked up on a bunch of blooming purple moss beforehand. We just had to have one more poison swamp. And it had to be full of the centipede spiders. But perhaps worse than the centipede spiders? How did that wake both of them? Oh, okay, whatever. The hand hippos. Whoa, hey. I didn't realize if you hit them in the underbelly, where all those eyes are, you can repost them. Oh, and they even have the little roly-poly attacks, like the Chalice Dungeon, the naked roly guys from the Chalice Dungeons. Oh shit. Oh, it's gross. They're so disturbing. What I really like about some of the most disturbing enemy designs in the Souls games is less is more. Like, there are a couple overtly grotesque things, but then there are just the things that you can't quite put your finger on. Pun intended. There are the things that you can't put your finger on, but they're just wrong. And that's what's disturbing about them. It's a very kind of Silent Hill philosophy, where they're not excessively gross. They're not like creepy crawlers kind of gross. They're wrong. And it goes even down to their mannerisms. It's just very, very disturbing. So, Eleonora. A strange weapon found among malformed inhabitants of the Profaned Capital. The Profaned Flame was triggered by the curse of these women, relatives of a certain oracle. But despite their culpability, they went on living without any cares. Here we go. So, those hand hippos? There's something to them. This is something I needed to piece my... That weapon, that axe, is something I needed to piece my theories together. Tiamat and I had a big discussion back in episode 15 about this. So to recap stuff we know about the Profaned Flame again. It's an everlasting flame. The Pontiff found it and used it, and its corrupting influence consumed the hearts of his knights. It is, by its very nature, considered profane because an everlasting flame defies the cycle. And then there are the inferences that you can make based on some of the other information we have. Wolnir Carthus, which connects directly to Irithyll, where the Pontiff is located, discovered a black flame and created dark pyromancies, where he eventually succumbed to the abyss. I infer this black flame to be the Profaned Flame. If it is the same flame that Wolnir found, we know the Profaned Flame is dark in nature. Bonfires are usually kindled by humanity, which is a fragment of the dark soul. This is a dark flame that burns indefinitely as if it already had its own everlasting supply of dark. To add to the connections between the dark and the Profaned Flame, it's said that the Profaned Flame incinerated only human flesh. I think that's in Yhorm's soul description. It incinerated naught but human flesh. So there's that. There's the Profaned Coal that we found in the dungeon. That offers another abyss connection. It gives you access to the dark and hollow infusions. Those big hand hippos, they're abyssal creatures. Did you notice how they kind of bore resemblance to, their little appendages bore resemblance to Manus's hands? The one that grabs you to pull you into Irithyll specifically? They are, again, they're abyssal creatures. And you know how you can tell? The Farron Greatsword and the Artorias Greatsword do bonus damage to them. And those weapons happen to have a hidden property that they do more damage to abyssal creatures. Whoops, I fucked that up. So there are abyss creatures in the Profaned Capital. So we've tied Wolnir's flame to the Profaned Flame, we've tied the Profaned Flame to the Abyss specifically, and the religion that the Pontiff and Aldrich were a part of. As in, like, Aldrich's vision of a coming age of deep water ties into all of this. With the deep being a kind of mysterious entity, we have a pretty big correlation between the deep and the abyss through the Profaned Flame. It's kind of a really key object in all of this. And remember how I kind of speculated how if the Witch of Izalith created the Chaos Flame by trying to duplicate the first flame with her Lord Soul, what kind of Lord Soul would it take to create a black, ever-burning flame? Well, the Dark Soul is the obvious answer. That axe that the hand hippo dropped is a core pillar in my theory now. It says the Profaned Flame was triggered by the curse of these women, relatives of a certain oracle. An oracle ancestor of abyssal monsters is responsible for creating the Profaned Flame. Is there anyone in Dark Souls lore that reminds us of that? How about Elsana from Aleum Lois? Let's see, does this say anything? Mindless Hollows, Unreal. Okay, no, that's not worth getting sidetracked on my thought over. Okay, so Alsana from Aleum Lois. Alsana was a child of Manus, tick one box, and she was a fragment of the Dark Soul. And her title was the Silent Oracle. I think she might be, can't believe I'm alive, the only character in the whole series to be referred to as an oracle specifically. I think Alsana, whatever her motives were, created the Profaned Flame using her own fragment of the Dark Soul. Maybe it was an attempt at snuffing out the Chaos Flame that threatened to swallow Aleum Lois, who knows, but I think Alsana did it. I think Alsana is at the heart of this. You know, we find the Profaned Coal in an icy skull. So either it's not a real flame in the traditional sense, which, considering the Profaned Flame incinerated nothing but human flesh, would make sense, or the ice might be infused with whatever sorcery was freezing Aleum Lois.
You are a saint. Once again, you are my valiant savior. I, Siegfried of Catarina, express my deepest gratitude. Take this, a token of my thanks. Go on. It's all yours. No, please. Go on ahead. I've my own road to take, and a duty to fulfill. Very soon. No, please.
Oh man, I wish this was early in the game. The Covetous Gold Serpent Ring is the alternative to the Silver Serpent Ring, but instead of increasing the number of souls yielded by enemies, it increases your item discovery. I wish you could get that early. And of course, we find Sigurd locked up here. so we can advance his quest by freeing him from the dungeon. We got here by a really cool window jump. The giant is not awake, so these rats, I think they're... I'm not sure if they're infinite, but they're pretty close. There's a really heavy stream of rats pouring in down here, so we want to try to thin them out before fighting the giant. I'm not done, though, with that floor stuff. That theory seems way too likely to me to at least not be partially on the money. I mean, some of the side speculation about how the deep relates to the abyss and that tie-in, maybe not on the money, but yeah, the core of it feels right. Engulfs, fuck! Profaned Capital was consumed by fire after Yhorm the Giant became a Lord of Cinder. The fire born of the sky is said to have incinerated naught but human flesh. There's where that comes from. Might have been Yhorm's soul. The one part that really puzzles me is the born from the sky part. It's the only thing out there that I can't account for and might throw some kind of wrench into that theory. I don't know what the hell that means. But until I find some reason to think it contradicts any of my thoughts about Alsana being behind the Profaned Flame and the Profaned Flame being linked directly to the Abyss, I'm gonna continue believing that. I hope we get more info about it. There just seems like there's a couple of missing pieces. And if those blanks ever get filled in, you can really tie this story up with a nice, neat bow. With a, like, in a surprisingly concise way. Plus, I've been saying all along that the Deep is more than superficially related to the Abyss. Aldrich saw an Age of the Deep in, like, these meditative visions. I would be shocked if that had nothing to do with one of the primordial serpents. Or better yet, if the Age of the Deep Sea is an alternative to the Age of Fire or the Age of Dark, in the same way that the Profaned Flame, being black and ever burning, exists outside the cycle as an alternative to this never-ending wheel of Age of Fire or Age of Dark. Because that's what this seems to be all about, like finding an alternative to these preset things in the cycle. The Age of the Deep would be outside of that cycle in the same way the Profaned Flame is what I'm getting at. I really think Aldrich's Age of the Deep could be a world in which the First Flame is simply replaced by the Profaned Flame. Mimics all over the damn place. There are more mimics in the Irithyll Dungeon and in the Profaned Capital than there are regular chests. I love mimics, I really do. I love the Dark Souls mimic design. I just love the concept of mimics, but it's excessive, not because it's dangerous, but because in its excess, it kind of takes the danger away. Ideally, like, you would have a very small percent of chests as mimics, so that the player gets complacent and stops checking because they don't feel like they have to. But when you get the impression that every chest could be a mimic, there's nothing to be paranoid about. There's no element of surprise or danger anymore. But we're right back to the beginning of the Irithyll Dungeon. We've kind of... man. They fucked up by tying the Irithyll Dungeon so closely with the Profaned Capital, because it just serves to further highlight how shitty the Profaned Capital is. But it also does a good job at highlighting just how fucking awesome the layout of the Irithyll Dungeon is. I'm telling you, this place has my favorite layout in the game. And they let you wait a good long while before everything pays off in a nice package. But it eventually does. And it is one of the smaller areas, but it's kind of... It's less that it's tiny, and it's more that it's compact. They do a lot with a little. Umbral Ash of the Prisoner Chief of the Catacombs with this, blah blah blah. Prisoner Chief used his clout to hoard all manner of things, but died without putting them to use. Wonder who the Prisoner Chief was, or if he was anyone important. My brain's a little bit fried after going through the whole thing about, the Profaned Flame. I think the Profaned Flame is one of my favorite additions to the lore. Because it actually feels important and like there's some kind of payoff to it. And it ties a lot of things together. It introduces something new. And if it is what I think it is, it's something logical. Like it's a logical extreme to something. Like, it doesn't feel like it's thrown in there just to put a wrench in everything, and I don't know, I felt like a lot of Dark Souls 2 editions were like that, like the Throne of Want. Like, it's just kind of put in there just to disrupt the status quo, and there's never really going to be a satisfying payoff to it. And it convolutes everything. Not necessarily just the Throne of Want, but that's kind of the example that's coming to mind. A lot of stuff was just thrown in and just to convolute and obscure and obfuscate, but Profaned Flame seems, again, substantial. If that makes any sense. Whoa, 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 whoa. We got one more thing to take care of since we have that jailer's key ring that we got in the Profaned Capital. One little cell we ignored earlier. The pitter-patter of rat feet's making me paranoid.
Oh, there you are. I thought you'd all but forgotten me. How sweet. Good to know that a skinny little heretic can still turn heads. Oh, you're not one of them, are you? Accept my apologies for mistaking you for one of those leeches. So, what business have you here? This is a land of monstrosities, and I am no exception. You're here to save me, but I'm guilty, a wretched child of the abyss. Is that something you can forgive? Oh, really? You are no ordinary man. Very well. Besides, I've grown tired of imprisonment. I am Carla, and I accept your proposal.
And then we find Carla. Carla. Let's start by saying that she refers to herself as a child of the Abyss, and her name follows the same naming convention as Nashandra's, Alana's, Nadalia, Alsana, and now we have Carla, who again is referring to herself as a child of the Abyss. Then we find Alva's gear right outside of her cell, who in this game is referred to as not Alva the Wayfarer, but Alva, Seeker of the Spurned. The same Alva who was enraptured by a witch named Zully in Dark Souls 2. When you kill Carla and you take her ashes, they call her a Spurned Child of the Dark. So, does she have some kind of relationship with Zully? Probably. Is she Zully? Maybe. There's reason to speculate about just kind of any kind of configuration of relationships with them that you can imagine. Mother-daughter is especially a strong bit of speculation. It could also be that Carla is adopted, which would make more sense to me than her being a biological child of Zully. Unless Zully was a child of the Abyss and had a daughter somehow? Like, birthed a daughter? I don't know. Yeah, that gets messy. But Carla has some serious connections with the Children of the Abyss. And we were just talking about Alsana. Weird that they chose to bring Alva back of all the characters from Dark Souls 2 and have him, in a tangential way, kind of have some important connections like that. Because for a lot of cases, they just cast aside a lot of Dark Souls 2. And part of it's for the reasons that I was talking about before. Some of the lore just not serving a purpose other than to make things more convoluted than they already were. And to be fair, and look at this, these are not, yeah, these bodies are turning to goo. They were incinerated like the Profaned Flame description tells us. Just gooey, scorched humans all over the place. And to be fair, to spread a little bit of that criticism around about MacGuffins and objects introduced to the lore that don't actually pay off anywhere, and just serve to convolute things, and yeah, the deep could wind up being one of those things. Unless they do some really big stuff with it in the DLC, the deep is going to be one of those things that doesn't go fucking anywhere and just kind of confuses people and plays around with the nature of, like, what is the Abyss versus what is the Dark? Are they the same thing, or are they different entities? And yeah, there are some questions that need to be answered, because that's not the kind of fun speculation. That's just miring everybody in a circular argument for no reason. I should probably head up here and make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, I think at least one of the DLCs definitely has to have some really, really big implications about the deep. Otherwise, it was a worthless addition to the game. But they could really pay it off in a cool way. And if they do that, then it'll cement Aldrich as probably one of my favorite characters and bosses. They just need some more connective tissue or some kind of payoff to it. Outside of the deep, I think the rest of the game does a really exceptional job with tying loose ends up. Without tying them all up, giving you a little bit to nibble on. It feels like one of the more complete From games in terms of paying things off, weirdly enough. I know a lot of people don't see it the same way, but like I said, one of the more complete Souls games from a lore perspective. I still think Bloodborne does a better job with that stuff. Oh, but Bloodborne is so special. Okay, we want to make sure that we're not hitting either of those two chests. Something that they do with the chests in this room that I particularly really like is you spend the whole game using that visual cue of the chain to determine what a mimic is and what a mimic isn't. There's another visual cue you can use, and you can always just play it safe and hit the chest to make sure. But they do something here that I think is really fun, and there are 3 chests in this room. One of them is clearly a mimic, and you can tell because the chain is facing outwards, and it's this one that I'm fighting now. Then there's the other one next to it, where it's kind of hard to see. By the way, if I haven't showed this yet in this game, this trick still works, the Lloyd's Talisman. You throw it at a mimic and they yawn. But you can barely see the chain amidst all the plates and pottery. And that's fun. And then the other one, the one that's just a regular chest, you can't even see the chain. That stuff is really good. I still think there are way too many mimics in this whole in this and the last level, but shit, that's a good trick. Obscuring the chain and taking away that safety net of the visual cue you've been using. One of the visual cues. Anyway, it's time to fight the boss.
Yhorm, old friend. I, Siegward of the Knights of Catarina, have come to uphold my promise. Let the sun shine upon this Lord of Cinder.
Yo! Sigurd walks into the cutscene! Oh, that's so cool! And Sigurd gets to have a really badass moment. Oh, this whole thing is so cool! Plus, did you catch what that weapon is? It's the fucking Storm Ruler! Oh, this boss fight is extraordinarily cool and nostalgic. Also really, really easy, which is the only disappointing thing about it. I would have loved it if there was a more straight up part of the fight, or if there was a little more to it. Oh, Sigurd has it too! That's it, he's been walking around with the whole time as a Storm Ruler. You know, at least one Lord of Cinder had to be a gimmick fight though, and at least it's something awesome like this, and it's a payoff to an NPC storyline as well. Oh. With how good the others are, I'm more inclined to forgive this one for just being so simple. Plus, how can you hate the Storm King gimmick? Yeah. And you get to keep it. And it works a little more extravagantly than outside of the boss fight than the Storm Ruler in Demon Souls works outside of the boss fight. You can still get to use it to some effect.
It seems I am in your debt once again. My thanks. I could have not kept my promise without you. Now, for a final toast. To your valor, and my old friend Yhorm. Long may the sun shine. Well, I'm going to have myself a little nap. The only thing to do, really, after a nice toast. You are a true friend. Best of luck with your duty.
Unkindled one. The fire fades and awaits its one last lord. Prince Lothric is in your hands. Please save his soul.
What happens here absolutely infuriates me with how creatively bankrupt and shitty this is. You teleport out automatically? Fuck off. Can't tell you how many things are wrong with this. There's too much teleporting in the game as is, for one. Like, I cannot stand it. It's lazy. Even from the word go, you teleport from Firelink to Lothric. It's such a cop-out for actual world design and careful signposting to keep the player on track. Like, it's disorienting. It tries to just thrust you into another fight with no breather. Emma is talking to you even if you've already killed her. Like, From is usually so much more careful with details than that. You don't even get a chance to see Yhorm's room or light the bonfire unless Sigurd is there to give his dialogue. Like, come on, it's fucking terrible. Really gets under my skin when they do such stupid things like that. Like, it's this design eyesore. Do these two Stormrollers have different... No, they don't. Greatsword with a broken blade, also known as the Giant Slayer, for the residual strength of storm that brings giants to their knees. Yhorm the Giant once held 2 of these, but gave 1 to the humans who doubted him and left the other to a dear friend before facing his fate as a Lord of Cinder. Whew, that tells you about all you need to know about Yhorm. Kind of getting off of that rant about how shitty that teleport is and all the teleporting in the game. Did we also check? No, we didn't. Yhorm is the descendant of an ancient conqueror, but was asked by the very people once subjugated to lead them, serving as both a weighty blade and a stone-hard shield. Right, there's still this. Lonely Yhorm became a Lord of Cinder, but the Profaned Flame to rest, knowing full well that those who spoke of him as the Lord were quite insincere. That's a metal icon. So we'll talk more about some lore implications with Yhorm and Sigurd next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. It'll be more positive next time, too, because on to better levels. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one.